I have been challenged by one potential guest of mine, Glenn Luck, who often posts prolifically on China economy and like that. Originally, wanted to invite him to do a show on how Chinese economy is actually much larger than it's been reported. Because he said Chinese economy is probably twice the size of United States. But he challenged me on something. He said, rather than your normal talking points about China and US, why don't you invert it? Say, how can United States turn things around? And I really thought about this for a while, and so I want to put that question on you because you have more political experience than I do, and you and I both aware of the problems in the U.S., which is the special interest takeover of the country. How do we break out that cycle?
Well, unfortunately, we had something like that with FDR. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but he did in fact change the system. So I would say first off, the leadership. I've told you before, I don't believe in isms. I don't believe in democracy or communism or anything like that. What I believe in are the systems of government that produce good people. Because without good people, I don't care what system of government you have nothing. It will all turn bad. So I look at it that way. In terms of America, I think that in the past, at least historically, we've had people who've risen to the occasion. Sometimes people say it's the times make the man. Sometimes the man makes the times, whatever. I think it's a combination of those. The right person at the right time can make a big difference. America has lost its hegemony. That's a fact. The world is multipolar. That's a fact. The problem is we're going through what they call a paradigm change, which is a fancy way of saying the things we thought we knew are no longer as valid, and they were creating a new set of things that we think we know, assumptions. And the assumption that America is preeminent is gone. The only problem is that when you start changing things, there are always a lot of people who say, no, I don't agree. And that's the main problem in America. You have people who believe in nostalgia, and the last two presidents are perfect examples of this. Biden wanted to talk about, the 50s, when he was growing up, and how his dad, who was working a union job, was able to he was working, but he was not wildly educated or anything like that, but he was able to put food on the plate, help his kids with school, have a house, these types of things. And he was not upper middle class. And the kind of things that Biden had when he was growing up would be equivalent to upper middle class today. So he longed for those times. He wanted to bring America back. And then you have Donald Trump, who in essence the same thing. He wants to bring America back, but the age of industrialization, things like that, things change. You never swim in the same river twice because the water changes, it moves. So it's one of those things where until we start realizing that American exceptionalism, this idea that we can tell you what to do, but we don't have to do it ourselves because we're superior or we're looking out for the greater good, that doesn't work. I mean, every fascist group in the world will tell you that they're doing good. And even if they have to do bad, it's okay because it's for the greater good. So we have to get away from these fascistic tendencies. We have to embrace the world the way it is. We need a leader who can pull people together. And it's not going to be everybody. You're going to have at least 20 or 30% who resist, but pull the majority of people, Americans, together, and then says, okay, we have to have a plan. We're a rich nation. We have wonderful people. We used to be able to attract the best and the brightest in the world. We have educational institutions which are, storied. They have so many different varieties. You can choose how you learn and what you learn. And those are great advantages when you start talking about a knowledge economy. I mean, the irony that I always said is industrialization is low margin business. You're competing against the rest of the world. So it's supply and demand. Currently, you have supply and demand. A lot of the supply is being met by China, right? And they do it very efficiently at low price. The United States could never match what China does currently without massive, massive investments, but it wouldn't create jobs. And it would still be very low margin because it's competing for legacy industries. Yes, I need salt, I need chemicals, I need all these things. But when you can make them on vast numbers, economies of scale, I can churn out 10 billion of these things an hour. All right, no one's going to even get close to you in terms of, well, let's go into that business, right? There's no way there's the capital. You have barriers to entry of the market, which means that it's just cost too much to try to get into that industry. And even if you do, the margins are very low. We also have a built-in problem in terms of almost every single one of our industries that dominates in the U.S. is dominated by 2 or 3 companies. So you have an oligarchy. Do they serve the people, or are they taxing the people for what they need? I mean, you know better things than the cell phone operators, all right? They have, in essence, somebody comes along. If they are innovative, they either get crushed by the rest, or they get bought out. So, this is the kind of thing. So you look at Microsoft. Why is Microsoft so successful? Well, they were famous under Bill Gates for going into buying up technology that they didn't want released because they already had a huge investments in existing technology, and they needed to get their investment out, the return from that. So rather than allow some company to come in, do it, they would either crush it, saying, okay, there's something wrong with your patents, we're going to sue you and, basically bleed you dry. Or he says, you either let us buy you out, or we'll go back to number one and crush you. So they were pretty famous for being very hard-nosed about this. And there were a lot of things that they bought which have never seen the light of day in terms of the market and things like that, because it was a corporate decision. So you have to, ironically, you have to have a system where, yes, government does have a watchdog, that you do have consumer interests out there at the overall level, but that where competition is actually at the lower levels, that you don't have monopolies or oligopolies controlling things. Because the reason you don't is if they could do it efficiently and pass on the savings to people, that would be great, but they don't. Their sole aim, and they'll tell you, is to enrich their investors, their shareholders. They have no obligation to anything or anybody. All they need to do is to make money for the people who own them. So, structurally, you have industry. In terms of ideology, we have to put away this idea of American exceptionalism. We need better leadership that believes that they have a duty to the people. And I'm not saying communism or socialism. As I said, I don't really care about that. What I do care about is, how do you run a society today, an information-based society, if you don't have a healthcare system? Because our healthcare system consumes, 15, 20% of the GDP, yet it doesn't cover most of the people. Whereas other countries, and their systems are not perfect, all right, but they spend less, between 3 and 5%, and they cover everybody. The decision not to fund them higher, that's a government decision, but they're spending literally a quarter of what we do in covering their people. If they spent half of what we do, they could cover all of their people. How do you run a country that doesn't have a good educational system? If you need knowledgeable people, if you have to train people for a new economy, the digital economy is not the old one. This is the first time in history that white-collar workers are directly under attack. White-collar workers are the people who collate, they gather information and reports, they summarize them, they organize them. Think of accountants and things like that. They're not making any money. They're simply organizing the information. But now AI can do that. And can do in a fraction of the time, and it can be much more accurate. It doesn't mean it's a panacea. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be any accountants in the world. Quite the opposite. The difference between the world with AI and world without is that without AI, there are a lot of clerks who are gathering and collating information and sending it up. Under AI, that will be done themselves. But what AI can't do is ask the right questions, all right? Institute assumptions. So the people who are in charge of what is being done, and for instance, people should understand that accounting isn't what they think. It's not just collecting information and saying, okay, it's how you characterize something. And that's what happens on the higher levels. Is this a debt or a credit? Well, there are different, people saying, well, come on, don't talk foolish. It's either one or the other, right? No. I can make a debt look like a credit. I can make a credit look like a debt. And it's a question of how you characterize them. And that type of information, it can be done at a low level by an AI, but not at a high level. You can tell it what you want, but what happens is the answers that you get from an AI are going to be largely the same, assuming they have good data. It should be largely the same. Unfortunately, in the business world, and unless you have a competitive advantage, what are you offering, right? I offer the same as him. There's no value. So there's always going to be room. But as I said, what is needed in society is changing dramatically. We need people who can think, who understand these systems. Yes, these systems have to be made. People have to invent. Robots don't invent themselves. They keep saying, well, at some point, robots can build other robots. Yes, they can, but they don't have that human element where the robot is to help humans, not to help other robots. So if they were just trying to build robots to help robots, I think they'd be okay. But if they're trying to build robots to help humans, it changes because the needs of human beings change based on age, fashion, you name it. We're dynamic in a way. We do all the same foolish things year after year, but we are dynamic. We like to make small changes. The way we regard our lives changes. And that's why this kind of one solution fits all doesn't work. So what am I saying? Okay, you need to make changes to industry to make sure that it is both safe at the top end, regulated by government. You need to make sure that there's competition so that you get an innovation, and innovation has access to the markets, can compete freely. You need to have a social service system that is allowing you to be efficient and knowledgeable and compete against other countries, because that's what we're talking about. And you're going to need a leadership and a way of not only that one leader, but you need to have a system that produces consistently good leaders. And good leaders can't exist by themselves. It's not like I create an uber leader. You have to have those behind them within the bureaucracy who do believe in a better society. If you don't have that, and I've seen that, I always used to say bureaucracy is the death of civilization. Because once people stop caring, and it's just, I don't care. It wasn't my dream to be a clerk. All right. And people hassle me and they treat me badly. So I do the same to them. In essence, they become not actuators, not people who help. They become people who get in the way, make your life miserable. Why? Because they're miserable. So, you have to have systems where people believe in what they're doing, whatever it is. And that is, it can be any ideology, but as long as you're pushing it in a way that is, beneficial to humankind. And I've told you, I think before, the world is pretty simple in my book. I've never met a good person who didn't have empathy, caring for other people. Never met a bad person who had true empathy. And as I was dealing with criminals and things like that, but also in terms of business, friendships, etc. Those people who have no empathy, of course they're going to cheat you. They regard you as, part of the jungle, and they're trying to survive. And if they have to kill you to do it, hey, those are just the breaks. You do the same to them. This is what criminals always would tell me. My only crime was I got caught. I was simply doing what everyone else does, and I just got caught. And that was, 99.9% of all these criminals. Good people are saying, well, I have a responsibility. I've been lucky. It's how you get up in the morning. If you get up in the morning, you count all the things that you have, even if you don't have a lot. If you count the things that you do have, you woke up that morning. Do you have enough food? Are you able to feed your family? These are basic things, but if you have those, it's a start. Is a Ferrari going to make you happy? I don't think so. But then there are the other people. They wake up every morning and they think of what they don't have. I don't have the Ferrari. All right. I'm not married to the most beautiful woman in the world. My children don't love me. I'm a victim. And my experience, victims are the ones who are most likely to be criminals, to give in, to say, well, no one cares about me, so it's okay. He says, people ask me about Iran, and I said, look, they have been victimized, no doubt, all right? But they're not completely blameless. And their idea that they're going to punish America by bringing the rest of the world down, sorry, doesn't work for me. It's not empathy. I understand that, they have deep problems with the US, and absolutely. But this idea that they can somehow get revenge on the US by collapsing the world economy, that's not fair. That's not human. That's not things. You're doing exactly, you've become the same monster that you're fighting. There's a good old friend of mine. He said, Einar, because I was in politics, he says, I just want you to remember something. Be careful if you fight with monsters, because it's easy to become one yourself. And that's ultimately why I decided I did not want to be in politics. The things that it does to you, the casual calculations that I could make, had nothing to do with empathy. It had to do with getting things done. I'm not saying that you can enter into something. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. I understand that, but I understand that there's a price to that in terms of who you are, because you're defined by what you do. So America just has to, if we only did 60% of what we told other people to do, we'd be pretty good. But we don't. I don't think we even do 2% of what we tell other people to do. And that's the schism. That's the difference that's happening between us and the rest of the world. I mean, can you imagine if, Malaysia came out and said, hey, we don't care about anything. In Malaysia, first and only, and all of you have to be our vassal states. What? No, what are you, nuts? Indonesia. Oh, yeah, it's only Indonesia. All right. I mean, China says, oh, no, it's only about China. We don't care about the rest of the world. The rest of the world should serve us. That's the jungle. That's exactly the wrong direction for people to go in. So yeah, let's hope. I've always said that America always changes as soon as there's no other choice. And I think Donald Trump, in a way, is bringing about hopefully what is the bottom, that we will hit bottom, and that somebody will arise who not only takes America in a new direction, but is able to attract people who believe in a better America, one that is part of global citizenship, powerful, the most powerful nation on earth, yes, but not the only nation on earth. A nation that has a shared responsibility for the rest of the world to do something about climate change, development, to keep peace. Not war. I mean, we can prosper. This is the problem I always had. And I said, you guys lack imagination. We could do very, very well without these wars. We don't need to build markets off the blood of other people. All we have to do is think creatively and solve problems. We solve problems, people want us there. If we create problems, funnily enough, they don't. And that's what we're doing right now. We go around the world creating problems, and then we're surprised that people don't like us. Well, if somebody did that to us, we'd be screaming bloody murder, time to nuke them, all this kind of stuff. We're doing that now. I mean, because Iran didn't fall down, and we killed their leadership. If anyone did what we did, if anyone did to America what we did to them, I guarantee you we would have had a nuclear response. But for some reason, Americans, they don't understand that. And until we get to the point where we understand that what we do to others is what they're going to do to us, can't do it. I mean, all the religious books in the world tell you, even if you're not religious, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that simple thing is supposed to be the bedrock of humanity, of having a social civilization. And yet we routinely ignore it in favor of, well, we're right, you're wrong. It's a zero-sum world. Sorry, I'm taking it. You can't have it. Do I need it? Doesn't matter. I'm taking it. That's not the attitude of a world that's going to be at peace. It's, unfortunately, the alchemy of war, chaos, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This is a welcome mat to them. And unfortunately, there are some weirdos who really want to bring that about. I don't understand it, but when Tucker Carlson, who has his warts, sits down with the current ambassador, former governor, a U.S. ambassador to Israel, former governor, Huckabee, and he says the things that he said, unbelievable. And then, and it's not isolated. Then you saw his interview with a senator from Texas, who said, well, yeah, I want to take out Iran. Well, how many people live there? I don't care. I don't know. And he's talking about how the Bible, there's one verse in the Bible that is basically he was the centerpiece of his life, except he didn't know where it was in the Bible. He couldn't quote it properly. I didn't seem to understand what it meant. Ted Cruz, I mean, he looked like the most massive tool and fool in the world in that. Are these the leaders we want? No, I don't think so. So let's hope that there, in the upcoming election, that there are people who do believe in a better America and are willing to make it better. Because, as I said, we're a young country. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've only been at peace for 17 or between 11 and 17 years out of 250 years. This is the 250th year of our existence. You can't say that it's it's a mistake or a coincidence or it just kind of happened. Once you had a pattern that indelible, you have to, it's time to reflect. And this is not something America has been really great at. We don't reflect on anything. Donald Trump is a perfect example. He actually said it in his biography, I don't reflect. I said, why? Well, I might not like it. If I reflect, I might not like it. He actually said that. I mean, I'm just like, well, I give him points for, having a bit of a self-realization here. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, I wouldn't like me if I, reflected. Isn't that pretty much why you should reflect? Perhaps you could be a better person. But, that's a sociopath for you. They can't see beyond themselves and they don't see the need to do it anyways. But if we could reflect as a nation and find a leader who leads us in that direction, and I'm not saying, religious or non-religious, I'm just saying, how can we be better? And how can we convince people that we should be better? I mean, you look at these last three, there are three assassins. They're all white, all male. None of them was an immigrant, okay? And they had different educational backgrounds and ages. One was, very, very young, still college. One was 58, all right? He was very politically active. He'd been drawn in. This most recent one, in his 30s. Wow, he graduated from Caltech. Your things. Now everybody out there, I want you to put on your tin hat. Okay, Carl here went to Caltech. That guy went to Caltech. I'm not saying that we should draw, points of interest here, but did you participate in the assassination? This is the kind of weirdness that we're going to be getting for a while.
I use a remote ancient Chinese tactic of mind control from Bali. I send
So
my
you
brainwaves.
Well, I'm sure they're going to find a trail of your of your podcast in his social media account. But he also had a master's from California State at I can't remember the name, but it's a very good school and very, very serious in terms of especially his area, which was computer sciences and things like that. All three were loners. They were a little bit different. They were a little more actuated, but they weren't the stark crazy guys you see wandering down the street, with a tin hat on, going, death to the aliens. They all felt very strongly that the United States has a problem and that problem is at the top. I think they're wrong in the sense that if any of them had succeeded, they would have made Donald Trump a martyr. They would have extended his thinking for years to come. And that's the problem. You don't want to do that. I always tell people I want Donald Trump to serve out his office. Because I'm really afraid of J.D. Vance. He's a scary guy. But to live long enough so that he's punished for his crimes. That they investigate his family self-dealing. They look at payments for pardons and all of these types of things. That he has to live with the fact that his economic policies were derided and shown to be shams. That he accomplished nothing. I mean, I always challenge people, what has Donald Trump accomplished? He says, well, he's guarded the border. Okay, so he took 1 million people out of the U.S. economy, which has resulted in, have the crime rates gone down? No. All right. Murder rates in some cities have in fact down, but they weren't being done. The murder rates weren't by, illegal aliens. Right. But what they successfully did is raise the price of food because the migrants were, especially in farm areas and ranches, they were the ones who were actually working for subpar wages, but those cost savings were being passed on to the American consumer. Now they're paying more, and they're wondering why there's inflation at the same time as things. I mean, there was a perfect example. There was a kind of open forum, and this woman and her husband were there, and they were saying, well, in a few months, we're going to be bankrupt. And he said, and very matter-of-factly, she says, well, I didn't think about it. I voted for Donald Trump. I knew that he was going to do something about immigrants, but I just didn't put it in through my own mind that he was going to get rid of my immigrants, the people who work on my farm, people who I liked, who were hard workers and whom I cannot replace. And this is things. But at a certain point, enough people realize it. That's why I say he will lose the midterms. His own popularity is way down. It's not going to increase because he's not going to be able to solve the situation in Iran. So prices will continue to go up.